Well, good morning. Thank you for being here, and it's such a privilege to talk to you. What an amazing event, amazing staff, just people from all over the world. I'm really honored and thrilled. I would like to share some principles with you that I've been working with as ways to increase and cultivate our natural sense of resilience, our sense of empowerment, wisdom, and compassion. You touch people, and we all touch people, and there's many ways of touching them. And the nonverbals are a huge part of communication. They say often it's 70 to 80% of communication is nonverbal. And what does that mean? That means that the vibe, the energy that we put out, actually touches people. And it's important that we recognize what we're putting out into the world and being able to include your tribe, your customers, your friends, your people in a very conscious way. So I'd like to talk to you for a minute about some chemicals that happen in the body and body muscle patterns and what happens when we get stressed. So when we're stressed, we constrict and we fire flexor muscles, we tighten up, and cortisol is released. So when cortisol is released, it shuts down the part of our brain that governs big picture thinking, creativity, innovation, risk-taking. Risk-taking for you might be reaching out in new ways to new clients, trying new things. So that obviously, that cortisol isn't going to help us. Instead, if we can learn to activate a combination, I often say it's a cocktail, of testosterone and oxytocin. Testosterone is the chemical that reinvigorates the part of our brain that governs big picture thinking, creativity, innovation, and risk-taking. And it's activated when we fire extensor muscles, when we uplift ourselves, when we open ourselves, when we're inclusive. Oxytocin is often thought of as the hug chemical. It's much more than that. It's actually a stress hormone that is released during crisis, and it makes us want to help others and receive help from others. Albert Schweitzer said, only those of you who have sought and found how to serve will be truly happy. And I believe what you do is you serve. It's a service of giving people the capacity to feel good about themselves, to feel healthy, to feel that they're connected to their better parts. And how can you do that same thing? The oxytocin makes us feel connected. The testosterone makes us feel confident. And then we have a sense that we really are in this together and that we can make a difference just by being in the room with someone, just by perhaps even texting them or talking on the phone. Your energy goes through that. So what I invite you to do is try a little exercise so we can just see what this is like, and I'll give you a technique. First, what I'd like us to do is all get a little bit tight and think about something that happened in the recent past that when you think about it makes you feel icky or yucky a little bit, and that little bit of tightness. So only spend about 6 seconds, but let's all go to that place. Just okay. Now, I'm going to coach us into a different pattern. So I'd like you to sit up a little bit straighter and use your breath. As you inhale, lengthen the back of your neck and uplift a little bit. And as you exhale, breathe down your front and think of something that makes you smile. That's how you release the oxytocin. Feel that warmth. Let's do it one more time. As you inhale up, there's a sense of lengthening and dignity in your spine. As you take a long exhale down, a sense of warmth, happiness, something that makes you smile. And then extend your personal space out a little bit more. It's like a bubble. And just think that you push it out behind you to the sides. And this is a wonderful community, so those around you are included in your personal space. expansiveness. And let your shoulders soften a little bit more with gravity. And ask yourself this question: what would it be like if there was just a little bit more ease in my body right now? Now think about that same event again. And notice as you think about it, is it different at all? And for me, when I think about it now, it doesn't feel as big a deal. It feels a little further away. So one of the things that we can do to keep ourselves from running a stress pattern in our body is we can work with muscle groups. We can be a little bit more uplifted. And we use the inhale to help that upliftedness, and the exhale to cultivate that sense of warmth, that sense of connectedness. Just that one breath. When you work with people, you're actually the leader. You're serving them, but you're leading them into an experience. And one of the things, the research that they've discovered about leadership is the best leaders lead with warmth and have strength behind them. So just with this one breath, you can have that sense of getting a little more connected to your strength, your dignity, and a little more connected to your warmth, your sense of interconnection. In neuroscience now, there's a term called a peripersonal space. And what that is, they say, is that our brain tends to map everything within our reach as part of us. So if we learn to extend our personal space out a little bit more, and when you are giving treatments to people, you're definitely including them. You could practice including even beyond and before the treatment and in conversations. So that sense of, how do I take that personal space or that bubble and extend it out? And one way to do it, a technique you can use, is any room you're in, and this is a big one, but normally you're in a smaller space. Look to a point on the far wall and practice extending your personal space out to it, and then balance it around you. What you want to do is practice including people, but it's not an idea, it's a felt sense that the people you communicate with are part of you. I think the greatest leaders and the most impactful people are people who really have a sense that their brain maps their community as part of them, which is different when we're stressed. When we're stressed, we tend to constrict, we tend to pull in and separate. And when we're feeling connected, we tend to expand out. So the practice is expand out as much as possible. Keep that sense of connection alive in you. Notice when you're starting to separate. Notice when you're starting to tighten up and pull in a little bit. And you can do this little practice. You can uplift. You can soften, breathing down the front, thinking of something that makes you smile. Expand out. Invite a little ease into your body. And if you change your energy, then anybody that you're communicating with will feel it. It's called mirror neurons, and they reflect non-verbally with each other. So I'll show you something. I'm going to change the energy in the room non-verbally. So all of you felt something when I did that, because I'm the speaker and I'm on the stage. I'm going to change it back. Yeah, better, huh? So you can do that, and the idea is to be more mindful when you start to feel fatigued, when you start to feel a little bit tight, and you can do this process. Now, sometimes I feel that I don't have the resources in me to become more expansive, more compassionate, to be that sense of confident, because I'm just in a difficult place. So I have this technique that I use, and it's called using my posse. And for those of you who don't know what a posse is, some of you from other countries. It comes from the cowboy movies where the sheriff is going to ride out and get the bad guys. And he gets his friends and he deputizes them, and they help him. So these are my helpers. I call them my posse. And what I do when I'm feeling inadequate or I don't have the energy for it, I'll invite the Dalai Lama to come through me. That sense of wisdom, that sense of positive energy and compassion that he embodies. If I'm feeling judgmental or critical to myself or to another, I'll invite Mother Teresa's energy to come through me. And if I'm feeling a little insecure or lack of confidence, I'll invite Nelson Mandela's energy to come through me. And it's just a wonderful technique because it's immediate. Now, you don't have to use famous people. I point to famous people so that you understand. It could be anyone. Somebody, a friend, a family member. It could be somebody who's not alive. My daughter often uses Diana, Artemis, goddess of the moon, because she lived in Sydney, Australia, and where she worked, there was a huge statue. And she was there with her cape over her and her bow and arrow and her dogs, beautiful and powerful. It's huge. So whenever she feels a little insecure, she'll think of that statue, and then suddenly she feels strength and beauty coming into her. So I really invite you to consider who might you use for inspiration. And just that feeling of, if I can't do it, I don't want to fight myself, maybe they can do it. And what would it be like if I had that energy or that confidence or that compassion? So it's this technique of reaching outside of ourselves, inviting and bringing it through. Maybe we've already had a taste of it when we were younger, or if we did a sport where we admired someone, and then we wanted to be like them a little bit. So you can do the same thing now as a way to develop a little more confidence, a little more compassion, a little bit more sense of expansiveness, wisdom. It's all there. There are archetypes and teachers all over, within our families, within our communities, that can inspire us. And we are connected. It's actually more scientific to think that we're primarily space. Right? All those atoms. And they were talking this morning about the sense of immortality, and I love the comment that anyone who's born today will die when they're 71. I thought, I got 2 more years. That was a little strange. And yet there's just we don't use our potential, and we could use much more of it. We can find resilience in the face of difficulty. We can find compassion in the face of judgment and injustice. We can find wisdom. All kinds of things are available to us if we open ourselves to that. So if you're game, I'd like you to try a little exercise with somebody next to you. You game for that? You have to touch them, but you're touchers, so I think it'll work. All right. So here's how we're going to do it. You're going to get a partner. And what you're going to do, let me explain first and then do it. One person at a time is going to put their hand on their partner's arm. So you're just going to touch your partner's arm to the side like that, just sort of, but don't both touch at the same time, just one person touch. Good. And then take your hand away and touch again and take your hand away. So the person being touched, do you notice that when that touch comes, so much of your attention goes to that touch? And even though I'm up here and there's all these lights? Okay, change roles. Let the other person do the same thing. Just touch your partner's arm and then take your hand away. Touch again. Take your hand away. On this side, can you notice how much attention goes to that touch? So, what happens is you actually lose information. You lose the sense of interconnection when you get too tight in your awareness. You want to be able to have attention to detail, but also keep the big picture in mind. The big picture is not only your client's day, your day, big, not just this tiny little moment. So, go back to the first way you were doing it, and I'll take you through a little exercise. Put your hand on your partner's arm again. Good. And I want you to slowly increase the pressure just a little bit. And the person who's being pushed on, can you feel how you tighten up a little bit when that pressure increases? All right. If you would keep the pressure on there, the person who's being pressured, I'd like you to do the centering. Inhale up, lengthen your spine. Exhale down the front. Think of something that makes you smile. Your personal space is like a bubble, and extend it out and imagine there's a hand pushing equally hard on the other side. And then ask your body if there was a little more ease. Now, the person pushing should feel that change too. There's been a shift in that. And the person being pushed on, you should feel much more relaxed, much more open, not as tight, and you're still under that same amount of pressure. You've just centered under pressure. It's a little tool you can do. But before you chat, see if you can change roles so the other person has a chance. Wow, you guys are very well behaved. Okay, start increasing the pressure, a little bit more, and the person being pushed on, you should feel a little tightness occurring because you're being pushed on. Now, while the pressure is on you, inhale up, lengthen the back of your neck. Exhale down, think of something that makes you smile. Extend your bubble out a little bit more. Imagine there's a hand pushing equally on the other side, and all that pressure is dissipating into the space. Ask your body if there was a little more ease right now. And notice if that's changed. And the person pushing, notice if that changed for you too. Okay, you take your hand off and just take a moment and talk with your partner about what you noticed. Okay, thank you. Oh! So the idea is that you have some tools and you have some ways to work with your stressors. We all get stressed, and there's plenty of good reasons. The trick is not to stay stressed. The trick is to recover that sense of dignity, that sense of upliftedness, openness. And it's a way you can actually use the stress to find resilience. Stress doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be an opportunity. It can be the possibility to meet that situation. And if you feel that initial tightness coming up, or that criticism, self-criticism, fear that someone else will criticize you, worry. The idea is to get it sooner rather than later, because if you wait too long, what happens is the chemicals start to be released in your body, and it's much more difficult to shift it. I had a client once who said, I was talking about how sometimes we run low-grade stress and we don't realize it for a couple of minutes. Or 10 minutes, she said, or 2 years. I was like, okay then. Because sometimes we get accustomed to that stress. But it's not healthy for us, and health is one of the keys of your community and your product. And you as the facilitators need to be the models in terms of how do you keep yourself healthy and resilient? And how do you transmit that energy to your clients? So there's a sense of they feel not only beautiful because of the product, but they feel beautiful because of the feeling that's in the room. It's really important. And then I believe your product will be even more effective because there'll be an openness, a receptivity. And whenever there's receptivity, the exchange is deeper. It's more profound. So there's so much that we can do to work with ourselves. And also, what I'm going to encourage you is don't wait until you think you're stressed. You can center any time, right? And you won't get over-centered if you're already centered. If you do, you'll be the first in history to be over-centered. I haven't seen it yet. So I'm going to give you some shorter ones, too. We've worked with this longer centering when you've got 10 seconds or 15 seconds. I'll go over it one more time, because the more we do it, it's a little bit like loading the software into your body. And then the body remembers it, and it's easier for it to do it. So the longer version is inhale up, lengthen the back of the neck. Exhale down the front, softening, thinking of something that makes you smile. And have a sense of your personal space like a bubble, and push it out a little bit behind, to the front, left and right. That sense of openness. Let your shoulders soften a little bit more with gravity, and ask your body, what would it be like if there was a little bit more ease in this moment? So that's our longer one. You can do that whenever you want. You can use other words. But that idea of taking yourself through a step. I'm a martial arts teacher, and I have a school. And one of my Japanese teachers once said to me, he once said at a seminar he was frustrated because we were too stiff. And then he showed the technique, and then we were too loose and too wimpy. So he was trying to find the right words, and his English wasn't great. But what he said is, I want to see you're noble. I want to see you're awesome. I want to see you're shiny. And I thought that was the best. So sometimes what I do as a little quicker centering is I'll ask myself a little bit more noble, and that's the upliftedness. A little bit more awesome, and that's the expansiveness. A little bit more shiny, that's the warmth. So you can do that in 3 seconds, in 4 seconds. So that's a bit of a quicker one. And I think that's nice with your product, because I think when your products really touch people, they feel a little more noble, awesome, and shiny. So if you feel a little more noble, awesome, and shiny going into it, that transmission is more fluid, it's smoother. Then there's always the quick ones. And the quick ones, it's just 1 second. And this came from a client of mine who said that it was difficult to sustain this more up and open kind of posture. And I said, you don't have to sustain it. You just need to be able to do these little 5-second bursts. And she said, like a lizard push-up. I don't know if any of you have ever seen them, but they're so funny. And they have it on YouTube to rock music with lizards going. So it makes me smile when I think lizard push-up. And I just get a little bit of brightness, a little bit of woo. So any way you can find to do it. The longer one is nice. You get to sort of settle and soak in, perhaps just before you're giving a treatment or at the end of it. Just that sense of really being in that place of upliftedness, of warmth, of connectedness, gentleness. And then the shorter ones, noble, awesome, shiny, when we recognize there's a little bit of that tightness happening, lizard push-ups, ding, we can do any day. So the statistics are, some of you know them, in order to develop a habit, it's 5,000 repetitions to get your foot in the door, 10,000 repetitions to make it easy to do or be able to do it under pressure, 100,000 to make it natural. It's a lot of repetition. But when we think of how many repetitions that we've put in going, oh no, or hundreds of thousands where we might have tightened up, where we might have been critical. So we have to start logging those repetitions of going from oh no to oh yes, right? Just that sense of can do, resilience, openness, grace. We can do it. We have to do it over and over again. And the best way to do it is also when you're not under pressure, just throughout the day, just a little ding. And then it starts to become natural. It starts to become part of who you are. And yes, we're still going to get stressed. That won't go away. We don't have to stay stressed. We can actually make that shift. So all life pulses. Life doesn't flatline. Flatlining is not good. Pulsing is life. So the feeling is that we can learn to pulse between reacting and uplifting. Pulse between criticizing and being compassionate. Pulse between feeling annoyed and offering grace. You can do it. You can get so you can move smoothly between these parts of yourselves. And I say this because I don't think we should try to transform ourselves into people who never react. I think that's going to be very hard to do and was going to be frustrated. But I do think we can get much better at recovering that noble, awesome, shiny self, at touching it. And if we start to accept the difficult parts of ourselves by realizing, oh yes, I'm stressed, that's okay, I can also be bright, then we become more whole, we become more unified. We don't have to throw out any of the negative parts of ourselves. I'm an avid gardener, and when we garden, the first thing we do is we put compost on the ground to enrich the soil, and compost is basically shit. So sometimes I think that it's like that little shitty part of myself actually enriches me, because as I begin to be more skillful at holding that, then I'm more skillful at holding it in others. I can accept others. It is the basis of my wisdom and compassion. So when you put compost on the soil, the flowers and the vegetables grow well. And when we accept our own compost, then our wisdom, our compassion, our confidence, our resilience can grow. Thank you. So I just want to end by saying how much I appreciate what you do, who you are. This community is an amazing community. And remind you of the gratitude that you can cultivate for that. There's a wonderful teacher once who said that happiness doesn't make you grateful, gratefulness makes you happy. And so for you to really recognize what a fantastic opportunity this is, and the idea is to be able to take it back with you wherever you're going and keep working it. And to keep working it, you have to do the repetitions. But remember, the repetitions only take a few seconds. And just to say, in terms of practicing, I find that ritual practice is the best practice there is. So a way to do it, and you do treatments, many of you, so you actually have a ritual built in. So if you can make an agreement with yourself to practice before a treatment or after a treatment. If you don't do treatments, if you're in another line of work, find places or times that you agree that you're going to take that 5 seconds. You might take even 15 or 20 seconds. Sometimes when I drive, stoplights. It's an opportunity. Actually, my daughter is very cute. She gets to a stoplight. She extends her personal space to include the car next to her. She's in holding them, sending them good energy. When the light turns green, she pulls her personal space back in and goes, "You're on your own," and drives off. Good one. But it's just an opportunity to practice that ability to be inclusive, to open up, to let people into our territory, not to keep ourselves in our own personal space. And it's not dangerous. People think it's dangerous. I come from a martial art background, and I can tell you that putting up a boundary doesn't work. And I'll tell you why. Because I spent 45 years training to break boundaries. And teenagers, any of you relate to teenagers, their job description is to break boundaries. So the stronger your boundary, the more excited we get. It's like, oh boy, see if I can get through that one. What calms me down and doesn't make me aggressive is acceptance and inclusiveness. So the idea is if somebody is negative or wishes you ill, you don't have to absorb that. The space can. It's the space's job to self-organize, and it will. Just like the exercise we did in the beginning, where when you centered more, it might have seemed that the event that was unpleasant was more out there. You can actually put people's unpleasant comments or unpleasant thoughts into the space. You don't have to take them into your body. So if we open ourselves and we allow ourselves to be inclusive, then we can have this sense of that the space itself will absorb things. We don't have to take it on. And the way you do that is by concentrating on the space. And space is the connector, but it also has an intelligent self-organizing principle in it. Anytime you do something artistic, train in any art, you're always taught about space. Music, sculpture, painting, you're always taught about the spaces. That's what makes that art stand out. So when we're in relationship, we also want to connect to the spaces around us, because that space will help us be together. Instead of the insecurity of, I need you to like me, I can take the attitude we're already connected, and I can enjoy that. And I don't have to constantly be sure you're going to like me. I can be warm, I can be open. And if you're in a bad mood, that gets to be in the space. It doesn't have to go on me. So in that way, being open and being inclusive is not dangerous. It's actually something that is less dangerous, in my view, coming from my background, than trying to put up a boundary and keep people out or keep energy out. I don't see it working. But opening up tends to calm people down. And we always say in the martial art that I do, if somebody attacks you, you can move so that they actually end up attacking the space. So you could even think of it just as an idea. If you feel that there's negative energy coming, you can think, I'll just let it go to the space. I don't have to take it on. So let's just end with a last little bit of noble. Yeah, awesome. And shiny. And then just bring it up another 5%. What if there was 5% more noble, more awesome, and more shiny? Oh, let's go for 5% more. What are we saving ourselves for? 5% more noble, awesome, and shiny. Thank you very much.